We are here today with Libby Vanatta, our resident pianist with the Strios. So thank you very much for joining me, Libby.
My pleasure.
How are you doing today?
Doing great. It's a beautiful day, sunshine, nice temperature. Nothing to complain about.
That's about all you can ask for in Texas.
Exactly.
So people are used to seeing you behind the keyboard. Can you tell me a little bit about how that started for you?
Well, I have played piano quite literally as long as I can remember. I don't remember when I started. My great-grandmother was a piano teacher. So she pretty much, and my mother plays piano by ear very, very well. And so as soon as I could sit at a bench, I was at the piano. And I started lessons with my great-grandmother when I was maybe 5, and then I shifted over to a professional teacher, a non-family member teacher, when I was 6, but I really don't remember starting. And so it's always been part of my life.
That's so cool. And then you obviously didn't stop at 5 or 6. You kept going. So tell me a little bit about the rest of the education you received.
Sure. So I stayed in lessons with that same teacher I started with when I was 6, all the way until I graduated at 18. And I was in a very small town in rural Tennessee, kind of the only pianist that played classical music. I didn't know anybody else, just my teacher and I. So I loved it, pursued it all the way through, went to college, got a degree in piano performance, went on to master's, and that's where I moved over to pedagogy, which is the study of teaching piano, which is actually what I do in my quote-unquote real life.
Well, what is your quote-unquote real life like? What is a week in the life of Libby?
I teach at a university, and I'm the piano pedagogy instructor. So I teach classes and training pianists, young pianists, how to teach. So that, because all of us end up teaching at some point usually. So that's part of my job. I also accompany there, so I play with other college students in their performances and my colleagues. I also, of course, teach children. I don't have a lot of time for that, but I have about between 12 and 15 little kids I teach as well. And then I have performances along the way too. So it's pretty busy, but it's really fun.
Performances as a part of the university, or also gigging outside?
A little bit of both. I play performances with the college students because part of their degrees, to get either a performance degree or a music education degree, they have to perform on their instrument of choice, a recital, and that usually involves a pianist, so that would be me. Not everybody, of course, but a chunk of them. And then I perform with my colleagues as well. The other faculty will give performances, but then I play in the Strios, I get hired to do other things, and I do whatever they need. I love lots of opportunities. I like a variety of things. I've worked with soloists, I've worked in chamber groups like Strios, I've worked with operas, like pianist at an opera or music theater troupe, I've worked dinner theater, I've done a little bit of everything, it feels like.
That's fun. Can you remember any specific performances or times that were maybe really meaningful, something about the repertoire or who you were performing with, or something that affected you?
Yes, and that I can't point to just one because what's meaningful at the time is different depending on where you are. For instance, that great-grandmother who was my first teacher, I got to play at her funeral, and I played the first piece she taught me how to play, and so of course that's emblazoned in my brain forever, and I feel very lucky to have that experience. I met my spouse at college orientation when we were 18. So those first performances, I've always been his pianist. And so those performances have been very significant over the years as we've moved through degrees and moved jobs, and it's been very helpful and to know each other, work together. It's very great. There's also those moments where you get, there are these dream pieces you love, and then when finally the opportunity comes and you get to play them, those are very important too, I think.
What's one of those for you?
Oh, I don't even know if I could put my finger on one that's any better than another, but one comes to mind are some of the duet pieces I've done with my duo partner. Yeah, and one of them was actually doing Carnival of the Animals with the Strauss. I've always wanted to play that piece, so I was so happy to get the opportunity to do that. But there's been lots of others,
Sure.
over the years.
What about any less than stellar experiences that happened while you're in a performance? Can you drop a little gossip? Tell us about
Okay, there have been a lot, and I won't tell you about the bad ones because I think anything that could ever happen on stage has happened to me. From dropping music, I've turned pages for people and dropped the book in their lap, including my teacher, which was horrifying. I mean, anything bad, but we won't talk about those. Do you want a funny one?
Sure.
Okay. So I was playing a concert with, and I'm not name dropping, I will not say the name, but he's a very famous trumpet player. Not my husband, but a very famous trumpet player. And he's known to be a showman. Showman.
Unlike all the other trumpet players.
Yeah, let's think more than most trumpet players. Yes, very much a showman. And so we're rehearsing, and when these professionals come in, I tend to get one rehearsal with them, and we don't play through all the music. You just sort of spot check things, and then you're kind of doing it for the first time on the fly in front of an audience, which is exhilarating and horrifying and terrifying all at the same time.
Wow.
So we go through, and it's the finale piece and the rehearsal, and he's like, okay, we'll play through this, and then when you get to this chord, just start. It's called a tremolo. You just go, and you just wait, right? He said, just start tremoloing, and I'm going to do some stuff, and you'll know when I'm done. And when I'm done, you hit a stinger, which is like a boom at the end. I said, okay, if you say so. So we get to the end, and I start going, boo, and he's, I sit sideways, so he's like right here to me. And he starts doing this thing, and all of a sudden he jumps in the air to do a flying splits, and he's quite tall. And so both legs go, flying out to the side. And on his way up, he caught with his shoe a trumpet that was sitting on the ground. The trumpet flips in the air and starts spinning. He sees it. He starts reaching to grab and catch the trumpet, which he does after the trumpet hits the ground and bounces, and he ends up lying. He falls on his back, and his head is right there beside me. And I look down, and I go, bonk. And he's looking up at me, holding his trumpet in the air, one in each hand. There you go.
That's a stinger.
Yeah, it was a stinger, all right. And he managed to smush his trumpet bell. It had to be sent away because he had another performance the next day. They had to rush it to Dallas to get it repaired.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It's not a boring life I lead. It's very interesting life.
Well, speaking of that, if you had not pursued a life in music and piano specifically, what do you think you might be doing?
I'm kind of I am a nerd. I'm very nerdy and a very proud nerd. I'm quite interested in literature. I think I might have ended up being English professor. I think I would have been a professor at a university like I am now. I also love psychology. I might have gone that direction, but something very booky. Yeah. That's great.
You talked about not remembering a time that you didn't play the piano, but have there ever been any other instruments that you have played during your career?
Yes, don't tell Ruth Ann. But I did play flute for a very small amount of time. Yes. I started in middle school. My school, as I mentioned, was my town I grew up in was very small, and the school was very small, and they didn't have a band. They started a band when I was in 6th grade, and I didn't join right away, but by the time 7th grade came around, I thought, I play piano, music's supposedly my thing, I should probably join the band. So I love the flute, so I played flute a couple of years, and then high school started, and everything gets very busy in high school, and the band was not really a band. It was really about 8 people, so it was chamber music, much like a Strauss, and I just felt like I wasn't contributing much, and I was doing my piano thing, so I quit. So I would never say I play flute, but I did have fun in band for a couple of years there.
Is there any other instrument that you've ever thought about? It would be really cool to play that.
I love so many instruments, and as an accompanist, I get to work with the literature of lots of different instruments. I played alongside of lots of instruments, and there are pieces I love for almost every instrument I've worked with. I did play around with the trumpet a little bit because I am married to a trumpeter, and there's trumpets all over my house. So I played, for a summer around with the trumpet, but I don't know. It's hard for me to imagine playing another instrument because I've always done piano. So I don't know if I hadn't played piano, I don't know what instrument it would have been. I really don't.
Yeah, well, that's cool. Is there anything about your instrument? I mean, most people are at least a little bit familiar with the piano. It's an instrument that a lot of people have taken lessons of, and everybody knows what it looks like. It doesn't get confused for other things like the bassoon, but. Is there anything that people might have a misconception about the piano or what it means to play the piano?
The piano has been around so long. Like you said, most people have heard it. Piano music is in pop culture. It's in our Bugs Bunny cartoons we grew up with as kids. It's people recognize piano pieces, and I find that gratifying. I find that people have an affinity for piano. So often when I say I'm a pianist, people say, "Oh, I always wanted to play piano," or "I took piano for a while and quit and wish I hadn't." So that makes me very happy. But I don't know if people realize there have been no advances in piano, the construction of the piano, since the late 1800s. It's exactly the same. They make it exactly the same. And other instruments, they'll tweak and change this and new metals and new designs. Not the piano. It's the same instrument it was when Liszt played it. That was the last, when they added the sostenuto pedal, nobody cares. But anyway, when they added the third pedal, that was like the last major advance.
And what does the third pedal do?
Oh, it is the magic pedal. It's the one in the middle. And it does this cool thing that if you press a few notes and you press that pedal down, it'll hold just those notes and no other notes. And you can play lots of other things and those notes continue to ring. And it's so much fun. It's like there's a ghost in your piano. That's what I tell the little kids. It's the trick pedal.
Nice. Yeah.